President Donald Trump has a new MAHA strategy, but it's no longer Make America Healthy Again. It is now the Make America Hungry agenda. The president is weaponizing food against America's most vulnerable families. In my state of Oregon, SNAP feeds over 750,000 people, including well over 200,000 children. Now, Oregon is roughly, from its northern border to its southern border, roughly 300 miles. So invite yourselves to do a little calculation. Imagine those 700,000 people lined up along I-5, stretching 300 miles from the northern border with Washington to the southern border with California. And do you think you'll see a person every mile or so? No. You would see a person every 2 feet over that 300-mile trip. You know, it's about a 6-hour drive from the northern border to the southern border. 6 hours driving past a continuous line of people. That, my colleagues, is the vision that Trump has for more than 700,000 hungry people, almost a third, every third person in line, approximately a child. What kind of vision is that for America? When children go hungry, it affects their physical development. It certainly affects the wiring of their brain, their mental development. And it certainly is devastating to their education. My colleague just noted that children can't learn when they hear the grumbling in the stomach. He's absolutely right. Children cannot learn when they're hungry. So it's a threefold attack on America's children. Congress, together, Democrats and Republicans, said this should never happen. So we created a contingency fund. That contingency fund has a little north of $4.5 billion in it. And we created the ability to use and interchange to transfer funds from a tariff fund that has about $16 billion in it. Funds raised during the Biden administration from tariffs available now to be transferred to ensure children don't go hungry. We together, Democrats and Republicans, created this twofold strategy. We together, the Senate and the House, created this strategy to ensure children won't go hungry. But what is happening now? Well, the Department of Agriculture administers this program, the SNAP program. Back in September, the Department of Agriculture posted a notice saying, don't worry, we will make sure we use the contingency funds to feed the children. And then, in October, they took that down because the president said, we don't want to use the funds that Congress set up in order to feed children. We want those children and their hunger to be a bargaining chip. We want to make children hungry. We want to diminish their physical and mental health. We want to undermine their education as a bargaining chip. Oh my goodness, what has this country come to that my Republican colleagues and the President of the United States are saying use hungry children as a bargaining chip in our nation? Now, the administration well understood the contingency fund, and they well understood the transfer authority. In fact, they used the transfer authority twice to fund WIC just recently. You know, I saw a speech by the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, last week, and he said, we're not going to fund SNAP because it would reduce pressure on Democrats. There you go. You hear it again. Use hungry children as a bargaining chip here in the United States of America. Trump posted on Truth Social, SNAP benefits will only be given once the government reopens and not before. That statement on Truth Social came after last Friday's 2 court decisions, both of which said, Mr. President, you have a legal obligation to fund SNAP. We have a contingency fund. You have the money, you have the responsibility, and SNAP must be funded immediately. Well, clearly that's not happening, because here we are on Tuesday, and SNAP has not been funded. Here we are on November 3rd, and SNAP has not been funded. The Speaker of the House, the President of the United States, using hungry children, seniors, people with disabilities, veterans, vulnerable families as bargaining chips. We're here tonight to say, hell no. That's not the America we live in, where we help each other out. This is not the America we live in, where we fail to use the program Democrats and Republicans set up together in a bipartisan fashion to make sure children and vulnerable families don't go hungry. Following that decision last Friday by 2 district courts saying, President, you have the responsibility to fund these programs, you have the funds to fund these programs, so do it. The administration has come back and said, well, we might consider using the contingency fund, but we're not going to use the interchange program. And that means at best we can only fund half the benefits because, well, SNAP takes about $8 to $9 billion per month. And we're talking only about $4.5 billion plus few change that is in the contingency fund. So you have to use the interchange for the other half of the benefits. Well, here is a big problem because families getting this minimal support of $6 a day per person would get $3 a day. I am pretty confident no member of Congress has ever gone a month funding their food on $3 a day. If any of my colleagues would like to volunteer to demonstrate that they can do that, it would be an interesting story for a reporter to follow you through the month. No cheating for the food you already have stored in the garage or stored in your cupboards. I'm sure your cupboards are already full. $3 a day. Give it a shot. Tell us about that. Children are not going to get the food they need. I'm a bit older. When you get older, you don't eat as much today. But I remember how much I ate when I was a teenager. I ate probably 2.5 times, 3 times what I eat now. The second problem is really a whopper. The second problem is that the administration has said because we only want to fund partial benefits, all the computers have to be reprogrammed. We got to change all the federal systems for distributing this fund. And you know what? All the states have to change what they do. So in a court filing yesterday, the administration said it will take weeks or months for most states or for many states to be able to deliver the benefits. We don't know if that was 50 out of 50 states. We don't know if that was 40 out of 50 states. But if most states have to reprogram their computers to do this calculation, to get this right, the administration is saying, we're going to do the contingency fund, but people may not get it for weeks or months, with an S on the months. Months? The court said, get it done by yesterday, Monday. This is Tuesday, and the administration said, it's going to take us weeks or months to get that funding done. This is just a way of sneering at the court and saying, you may have ordered us, but we'll find a way to slow things down. Again, using the most vulnerable Americans as a bargaining chip. That is fabulously disturbing. Here's the court decision right here. Take a look at it. I invite all my colleagues to read it on both sides of the aisle. It says right in it, families will not be able to get the funding in many states for weeks or months. This document was penned by Patrick Penn, Deputy Undersecretary for Food and Nutrition and Consumer Services at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, formal filing of the Trump administration by the Deputy Undersecretary responsible. I quote it just to make this point again. USDA's understanding is that system changes states must implement to provide the reduced benefit amounts will take anywhere from a few weeks to several months. So let's take several months. So benefits get to somebody in Oregon, my 700,000 plus Oregonians who use SNAP, for November, but they don't get it until January. Really? Colleagues, that's acceptable to you? Come to the floor and tell me why that's acceptable in your state. That's not acceptable to me. I don't think it's acceptable to any of you. So where are you? Why aren't you down here right now saying the same thing? This should be bipartisan. It isn't just children in blue states that are affected. It's not just blue children in red states affected. It's everybody. Every state has a population that will go hungry if the SNAP benefits don't get to them. So let's fix this. Together, we built the infrastructure so this would never happen. Together, let's tell the administration that they have to use this infrastructure. You know, last night I came down here with a resolution, and the resolution was very simple. It says, we together built the infrastructure through the contingency fund and through the interchange transfer ability to make sure children never go hungry. Together, let's tell the president, use these powers, fund the full benefits. And a Republican colleague came down and objected. I asked him to address the substance of the resolution, what was wrong with it. And instead, he chose to do a tirade about Democrats shutting down the government. My goodness, really? Just, it's like, let's talk about how to deliver a healthy meal to children, and we get a politicization of this issue. It's like moldy bread. My Republican colleagues know they voted time and time again against reopening the government in a fashion that will solve the health care problem that was created in the big, ugly betrayal of Bill. And Democrats voted against the Republican version of reopening the government. So the whole world knows both sides voted against a version of reopening the government, but then you have dialogue. People talk to each other. But President Trump said, I don't want the House or Senate leadership to talk to Democrats. So the Senate Republican leadership has been unwilling to sit down and negotiate. That's not the way it's supposed to work. We're not supposed to be ordered around by a president. The entire democracy is based on this chamber laying out the vision for the country, working together to make sure the issues in every corner of our nation are addressed. That's why there's 100 senators here representing every part of the country. That's why there's 430 plus members of the House representing every corner of the country. Not a dictator. Not an authoritarian saying my way or the highway. You lose your democracy and you end up with an authoritarian government when legislative leaders say, we're sorry, we'll set our own opinions behind, we'll set aside our own desire to help our own people to do what the president says. That's an authoritarian government. Every time you hear the president say, I'm shutting down a program because it doesn't align with the priorities of my administration, every single senator should come down here and say, we are a republic where Article 1 is about the power of the people through their electeds shaping the vision for this country, not through a single person in the Oval Office. That's an authoritarian government. You want an authoritarian government? There are a list of states I'd be happy to provide you for information for how you can go vacation in those authoritarian governments, and you can decide whether you like or not. But I'm here. We are here to defend democracy, to defend the vision of actually doing right by the people. Government by and for the powerful is not the vision of our nation. And yet, here we are tonight. The president saying starve the kids and the vulnerable families as a bargaining chip while he sends $20 billion to Argentina. The president saying starve the children and the vulnerable while he does $1 trillion in tax breaks for America's richest families, a bill that was passed on a partisan line by my Republican colleagues. Here we are tonight, a president and the Republican Party saying, starve the children and the vulnerable families because I want to build a ballroom, a golden ballroom worthy of Louis XIV. This new strategy from the president, being backed up by my colleagues across the aisle, the Make America Hungry agenda, make the vulnerable into bargaining chips, is not a vision that happens when you have government by and for the people. It is a vision that occurs when you have government by and for the powerful. But that's not the vision our nation was founded on. We were founded on a government that serves the people. So let's come together and remember our mission. Remember our oath of office to that Constitution that lays out the checks and balances to ensure that we serve the people, not the oligarchs, not the most powerful, not the billionaires. Let's address this issue immediately and tell the President we're 100 senators strong. Fund the SNAP program. You have the authority, you have the money, you have the responsibility, and none of us should stand for those children being bargaining chips. Thank you, Mr. President.